Um, Welcome. I'm here to talk to you about configuration management, in particular about bringing configuration management benefits to more people than currently configuration management is accessible to, and in particular a tool I've been working on for almost 3 years now, which is called Rudder. So, who am I? My name is Jonathan. I currently work at Normation in Paris. It's a company I created 3 years ago with some friends. I mostly spend my time working on Rudder. My occupation, when I started out working, was mostly as a developer, partly as a sysadmin, and then 2 months later it was mostly as a sysadmin, partly as a developer, and now it's kind of a bit of everything, including admin work, which is sysadmin without the systems, so it's doing the same thing on paper, which is really boring, and a lot of what I call communicating, so making things happen, talking to people, delving into technology, finding out about things. I'm also a contributor to various open source projects, obviously Rudder, which is why I'm here talking about it today. Also CF Engine, which is, as I will explain, part of Rudder as well. Also various LDAP tools like OpenLDAP, LSC, LTB, which are not really the subject of this talk, but if you want to discuss them around a beer later, catch me. So, my talk is going to revolve around IT service management. Most sysadmins have IT services to manage, so you all know what I'm talking about. Every IT service you have, you've got to first make sure it does its job, right? If you have an LDAP directory, you need it to actually serve LDAP requests. If you have a MariaDB database, you need it to respond to SQL requests. So to do this, you need to actually install the service, update it occasionally, configure it, make sure it's running. Pretty simple. Once that's done, you'll probably want to start worrying about security. If you have a service, you need to make sure that not anyone can go and use it. If they're not allowed to, you can't change the data. You have to check user accounts, check their passwords, make sure passwords get changed, log everything, check you get the logs in the right place, update security patches if suddenly a bug comes out, etc., etc., etc. You also want your service to be available. There's not much point having a service that's not available. Sometimes you may want it to be highly available. Sometimes you just want to avoid or reduce downtime. Because of, if you have a failure of something, you don't want your service to be unavailable. Maybe you're in a larger company, you actually need to plan for disaster recovery. What happens if my whole data center gets blown up by a nuclear bomb? We have other problems, but sometimes you have to plan for that anyway. And also, you might want to scale up. If your service is a big success, then probably lots of people will use it, and you need it to be able to handle those requests. Last but not least, around an IT service, unless you happen to be working on your own in a garage with no colleagues, which is quite rare, you have a lot of knowledge that you want to share. Probably the configuration you've made should be documented. If you're anything like me, and most system administrators I know, you don't like documenting, but you still have to do it. There's probably some procedures that you use every now and again that you would like to be written down somewhere. And you probably want to log changes. It's pretty useful if you get woken up at 3 AM in the weekend because your service isn't running. It's very useful to find out that your colleague actually changed one of the cache settings on Friday morning. It's probably related, so it's good if you can find that out. So, that's all very general theory about how we manage IT services, but how can configuration management help? I think lots of you here are already well aware of what configuration management does. I've had lots of discussions already, in a public talk this morning as well. So this is my point of view of what configuration management brings. The first point is the one that most people think of immediately, is automation. What you used to do manually, you can now have it done automatically. If that server crashes because of a nuclear attack or something, you can reinstall it automatically. It's fantastic.
Interesting.
You can also have your configurations done. Okay, pretty classic. Something that people think of less frequently as a benefit of configuration management is the regular checking of installations, configurations, services running. If you use a configuration management tool, if it can do it once, it can check this every 5 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on your tool of choice. And this can be invaluable. especially if you're talking about downtime. If for some reason you have a process that stops, you just check every 5 minutes whether it's running or not, you start it again, fine. Okay, we're touching on monitoring, but still, you can save quite a lot of downtime with that. Collaboration. If any of you attended Chris's talk on DevOps tools earlier, you'll remember that he spent quite a while talking about culture and sharing. This is kind of similar to the collaboration I'm talking about here. If you're using a configuration management tool, you've put all your configurations into it, so it makes it a lot easier to document things. In a way, just by using the configuration management tool, you are documenting it. The way you configured it is now written down. Every time someone makes a change, that's also documented. It's maybe a git commit, SVN commit, something like that. And you actually don't have to write the documentation, which is a big pain relief, usually. So, last but not least, industrialization. Once you have everything you can automate, check regularly, you can start reusing these things. You don't have to recreate an SSH configuration every time you install a server. You don't have to guess how your servers are doing. You can actually get reporting to figure out whether your services are configured the way they should be. So, lots of benefits. Probably most of you here are already using configuration management, I guess. So, why am I talking to you about this? Oh yeah, I need to get something out of the way first. Some people sometimes say that there are situations in which configuration management is not needed. I don't agree. Try and convince me if you want. But anyway, that's said. So most times, all these advantages are undeniable, right? We want these advantages. We need them. Maybe our boss requires them. But not everyone actually benefits from that today. Does your manager benefit from your configuration management tool? Maybe he benefits because you're faster at doing your job. Maybe he has no idea. Maybe he thinks, what is this thing you're spending all your time on? What about junior sysadmins? Something common about all the configuration management tools, I think everyone would agree, be it CF Engine, Puppet, Chef, whatever. It takes a long time to learn them. A long time being anything from a week, if you're quick, to maybe a month or several months. Doing that full time. So junior sysadmins usually wouldn't be able to use configuration management tools, or at least not efficiently first, because they take training. It's the same really for any sysadmin. If you're not a specialist in configuration management, if you haven't done that week of training or those several months of learning by yourself, you're probably not going to reap the benefits at all. So obviously, the reason I'm here is to suggest a solution. The Rudder project is a project we started 3 years ago, like I said. Our goal, if I could put it in one simple sentence, would be to make configuration management more accessible, to make it easier to start using, and to just make more people use it and benefit from it. It's an interesting statistic that someone at Puppet Labs told me actually, is that 80% of companies in the world have no configuration management at all. So that's what we're trying to change. Not because we want them to, but because we think it's a good idea. So, a couple of fundamentals. Our goals are to lower this learning curve, so that means that junior sysadmins, possibly even managers, or at least technical savvy managers, could come along, start using configuration management, maybe without even knowing that that's what they're doing. Obviously this means that compared to bare metal configuration management tools like Puppet, Chef, CF Engine, will probably be a bit less powerful, but it doesn't mean we have to be any less efficient. And share the benefits with a wider population. Different people want different information. Your manager probably wants to know, is my security policy applied right now on all my services? Or has it been applied correctly for the past month? What do I tell my boss? Junior sysadmins probably just want to get the server installed and then be able to go and get a beer. Just do it quickly. And if you're more of a configuration management expert, then you probably already have what you need, but maybe you want to be able to share those abilities and that knowledge with your co-workers who are not configuration management experts. So, a couple of fundamentals. We built this project in the open source spirit of don't reinvent the wheel. There are great tools out there, and we have built on top of the great tools. We chose CF Engine as the configuration management engine. It's in the name. Because it's lightweight and it's very powerful. And at the time we chose, it was the only one that actually ran on Windows, because Rudder also runs on Windows. This is no longer the case. We also use Fusion Inventory to actually get inventory data about all of the machines we're managing. It just comes automatically as part of this one. We share. It's open source. We have packages for all the main operating systems that we support, various Linux distributions, to make it easy to install. Just basically out of the box it should work. And it comes with a library of configurations built in. So that's one of the ways we actually make it easier for people to use configuration management, is that you don't have to write anything at all to, let's say, set up an SSH server, install a package, set up a web server. You can just click in a web interface and say, oh look, there's Apache configuration. Let's go, let's do it. And of course we want to improve on what's already available in the configuration management space to bring it to new people. So in particular this means having a much simpler, more streamlined user experience, maybe less powerful, like I said, less options, but easier to use, simpler. So everything is done through a web interface. Obviously there's also command line tools available, but the aim is to be able to do everything in the web interface. And we provide reporting. So, basic principle of Rudder, everything revolves around a web interface, as I just said. It's installed on some central server. And then you're going to have nodes. Nodes is the term we use to describe servers you manage. We call them servers, machines, whatever, we call them nodes. When a new node comes along, it's going to send an inventory up to the Rudder server. Then you'll have the ability to see in the interface everything about this server, who made it, the motherboard ID, the amount of RAM, which video cards it has, whatever you want, what software is installed. And you can accept it. Say, okay, I want to manage this server. Once you have a few, you can make groups of servers, either static groups, these are my production servers, they're 1, 2, 3, that's all there is, I'm very sure that's my group, or dynamic groups, all the Debian machines, all the really old CentOS 4 machines that I really should upgrade, etc., etc., etc. You can then set up rules on these groups. So, for example, you could set up a rule to actually upgrade some packages on those old CentOS 4 machines you have. And Rudder then generates CF Engine policy, CF Engine configuration, promises for those who are familiar with CF Engine, which is sent out to the nodes who are going to take that configuration, apply it exactly as CF Engine would do if you weren't using Rudder, and then send back some reports so that you can see in the web interface the status of your whole IT infrastructure. A couple of screenshots. I'm not going to run a demo, mostly because my laptop is too small to have a demo running. This is the main page you get when you log in. So there's two main parts. There's the asset management, which actually been renamed now. It's node management. It's where you see the inventory. It's where you make groups. And there's configuration management, which is the main part. And of course administration to actually configure things, set the server up. This is the overview of a node. When a node comes in, the first thing you see is this. You get some information about the node, its host name, what kind of machine it is, virtual machine here, the RAM, the swap, the operating system, loads of details, some technical data, and loads of other tabs here which give you all sorts of other information, like the hardware, file systems, network interfaces, a whole list of software, all sorts of things.
Do you need a special agent on each client, or do you extract it from the CF Engine information?
We use Fusion Inventory, which is the inventory software. It just runs once a day and updates the inventory.
So you're not really using the CF Engine built-in for this?
CF Engine doesn't have any inventory built in.
No, it does display host parameters.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I think some of this is, like, this is CF Engine community down here. So some data, but mostly from Fusion Inventory. This is how you make groups. You have a whole load of parameters here you can set. So in this case, for example, we have just set the operating system type to be Linux. This is going to basically get most of the machines. You can do much more complicated things like match hosts by regular expression on their host name. You could have groups of all your HP servers, for example. You could also have groups of any machines that have less than 200 megabytes of RAM or something. You can pretty much have any groups that you like using these criteria. Okay, so once you have your nodes, you put them in groups, you need to actually create some rules. The rules I keep talking about. We're going to get there. Rules are based on predefined templates to manage systems. So this is basically canned configurations, configuration management configurations, that is, that can do things. So most simpler actions are to install packages, to copy files, to edit files, to run processes or kill processes depending on your mood. We have more advanced ones such as user management, group management, copying SSH keys, setting up SSH servers, DNS servers, NTP servers, installing packages, configuring package managers, scheduling backups. There's I think there's about 30 or 40 of these templates available now, and there's new ones being created every week, so it moves on. Once you have one of these templates, it has a set of parameters that you can put in. To do this, you create a directive in the web interface. So you're basically just saying, okay, I want to set up an SSH server, and the web interface is going to ask you, okay, what port number should I listen on? 22? Something else? A couple? It will be the same for user management. If you want to create yourself an admin account on every single server, you could say, okay, user management, create an account called admin on all the servers, use the password super secret, because having an admin account everywhere is really dangerous anyway, so you might as well have a bad password. Put these in the web interface, and you have what we call a directive, which is basically your configuration of something. You can have several per technique, obviously. And then this is transformed into CF engine policy, sent out to machines, they do their job, and they send back reports. So, this is what it looks like. We have a whole library of available techniques. We have various things here: Apache Web Server, OpenVPN, package management, downloading files, copying, setting file permissions, job schedulers, all sorts of things. The list is too long to fit on the screen, so I had to cut it off. Once you have a technique, you can create a directive. This is the least good-looking part of the web interface at the moment, so my apologies. This is an extract of the SSH configuration. So this is asking you whether you want to allow password authentication on your SSH server, whether you want to allow public key authentication, whether you want to allow root to log in. You can just choose these options, set to yes, no. All of the policy templates we've created have same defaults, or at least what we think are same defaults. So I think the default for password authentication, for example, is actually no. We just changed it for the screenshot for some reason. So the idea is that if you don't really know what you're doing, you can probably just install an SSH server and you should be alright. Not that that's a reason not to check. Last but not least, once you have your directives, you can apply them to groups. This is a little extract of the web interface. Just choose a directive, choose a group, and off you go. Once this is done, configuration is going to be generated, sent out to all the machines in the network. They're going to apply it, and they're going to report back. We're going to have a nice list like this of all of our rules with a compliance policy, compliance percentage, sorry, telling us whether the machines are up to date, whether they needed repairs or not. We can zoom in. If I click on this number here, I get a list of the machines, how they're doing. So here's a few different states. Success means everything was okay and I checked it and it's still okay, no problem. Repaired means, oh, something was wrong, but I fixed it, so it should be okay now. It's not always the case. If you have something that every time the agent checks, it's still being repaired, or we have something that's conflicting, just as in plain configuration management tools. And of course you can have no answer. There's another important one, which is error. If the tool tried to repair something but failed, permission denied, resources unavailable, you tried to set permissions on a file that doesn't exist, that's going to bring you an error. And this all gets added up into the compliance percentage up here, so you can see in one quick glance.
Can you see the exact error, like you said,
Yep.
permissions?
You can, that's on the next screen.
Oh,
If you zoom into a node. If I click then on one of the nodes, if I click here, I come to this screen, which is the details of all the nodes, and I can see which configuration rules are here and their current state. And if I check in technical logs up here, we've got a list of all the logs of what happened, and I can just filter through that and say, look for the error, find out what happened.
How big is the history
The history.
of errors and success and
This is instant.
instant?
This is current on your machine.
Can you have a backlog of that somewhere, or?
Yeah, it's not displayed in the web interface, but the database, which is a PostgreSQL database, sorry, has the whole history of all the states, so you can just search through that pretty easily.
And there is no web interface to navigate through that?
Yeah, in the technical logs you can navigate through, but it only has a certain amount of history. It's all stored in the database, but we only have like 5,000 lines or something in the web interface, because otherwise the web page is really slow because it loads the whole thing.
One more question about checking the rules. How many is it CPU intensive for the machine? Is it resource intensive for the machine who does the checks?
For the nodes that we manage,
Yeah.
no, it's very, very lightweight. It's basically the CF Engine agent. We owe it completely to them. In fact, the process runs and it takes somewhere between 3 and 10 megabytes of RAM, of memory, and then when it starts, it uses CPU quite a lot, but it only takes, on average, we see runs taking between 10 and 15 seconds. So it's really nothing. Something that is quite CPU intensive is the inventory data. We're going to do that once a day. It's kind of a quite CPU intensive task, but it only lasts for like a minute, so it's not too bad. Okay, moving on. So if you followed everything I just said, this diagram is just saying exactly the same thing. You understand there's two basic building blocks: nodes on one side, which are your machines you're managing; techniques, which are pre-made configurations. They're actually CF Engine configuration files, but with variables in a templating language, very similar to the talk this morning on the small and medium business-sized server we saw. With your nodes, put them into groups. With your techniques, you make directives, so actually you're configuring how you want your system to be set up, and you put them together, and you get a rule that's going to apply this configuration to your nodes. This is where I was talking about managers and junior sysadmins earlier. This is where the different people can come into play. So a technique is probably something that an expert has written. That might be your configuration management expert, maybe that's you. Maybe it's someone else who shared it on the internet, put it on GitHub, and you just downloaded it and started using it. The directives are probably going to come either from maybe your security manager. If he said the way SSH is configured here is using private certificates and on some obscure port number, maybe he actually set that up because he can in the web interface. Or maybe it's your more experienced sysadmin who's gone and put the configuration into the web interface. And then on the other side, you probably have the junior sysadmins. Maybe they're installing new machines, so they can add them to the web interface, and they can just use directives that are already set up. Their job is made very much easier. New system, I've got to apply the company's security policy. Let's just take a directive, somebody will set it up, put it on that node, my job is done. And the managers, they can come along and check the compliance policy, compliance percentage on the rules. So, current status of the project. We released a first version we considered stable, which was called 2.3. The other versions did exist, but we didn't consider them stable enough. In October last. It's currently being run in production by a few companies. So we have the web interface to manage the nodes and the configuration and the rules. We have the real-time reports on infrastructure status. As you pointed out, the history of the reports is not so easy to access. We have currently 33 techniques, so templates of configuration available. Every change that is done in the web interface is logged. It's logged both in the web interface, you can see a list of who did what, who changed what, And this is quite cool. It's actually committed to a Git repository in real time. So every time you click on something in the web interface and you save, a Git commit happens. You can disable it if you're worried about disk access, but if you don't want to look at the web interface to see what changed, you can just go to the server in SSH, run git log, and you have a list of all the changes. Things are stored in XML files, so you can actually git diff them quite easily.
Do you have ACL management for users and groups that are logging through the interface?
Not currently. We have some basic. There is user management, so you can connect. You have user accounts. You connect it to your LDAP server, Active Directory, or whatever. But we don't currently have role-based access control, which is something we're working on for the next
You're
version.
working on. Okay, great.
Last point of the status is that it's packaged for main Linux distros. Just a quick example of how this works. If you want to install a new Rudder server, this is how easy it is. You just add our Debian repository. This is Debian. It could be Yum for Red Hat or Zip or whatever things you want to use on SUSE, etc., etc. Just add it to your source list, update and install one package that will bring down the dependencies. And just have one init script to run, which will ask you a few questions. Again, it's interactive, just how you want to set things up and everyone. And for anyone asking, I know you should use source.list.d, but it doesn't fit on the slides. On the nodes, it's pretty much similar. I have the repository in case you install Rudder agent, which is actually just the CF engine agent plus some of our initial configuration to get things going, plus the Fusion inventory agent. And then you add the server address into a file over here and things are running. Chris mentioned vagrants in his talk earlier. If you want to just test, there is a vagrant configuration available. It's on GitHub. Just clone the repository, go into there, run vagrant up. That'll actually create you two machines, a server and a node to manage. You can set up some test rules to see how things work. Okay, so what do you need to run Rudder on a node? You need a small amount of RAM, like I said, 3 to 10 megabytes usually. I would recommend a bit more if we have more RAM. Problems otherwise. This is a graph I made of the CF Engine daemons running. This is a weekly graph, and you see they just use somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5 megabytes of RAM on a completely flat line. There's no memory leaks, it just stays put. You need some dependencies, but it's very likely that you already have them. SSL library, Berkeley DB, Perl compatible regular expressions and syslog. So if you have many servers running without them, probably not doing so well. One slide I don't have here are the requirements for the server. The web interface is written in Scala, which is a Java compatible language. So you do need to install the Java virtual machine. It works with Sun, Oracle's virtual machine for version 6 or OpenJDK 7. You do need considerably more RAM. You need about 2 gigabytes to have a server running comfortably. But when you scale up in the number of machines you're managing, that amount doesn't go up very much. We've done tests going up to I think it's 400 nodes simultaneously. We used like 8% of CPU at most times. So
what's the maximum number of nodes?
I don't know. Like,
number of nodes we tested?
Yeah, we tested up to 400, and that's no issues. But it depends again on the complexity of your configuration, how many changes you make, etc. So, how does the architecture work? Speaking of scaling, we basically use the CF Engine architecture, which is like this. You have a CF Engine server, you have nodes, they go and get the CF Engine configuration and apply it. We add a few things on. Oh yeah, that uses the TCP communication on port 5308. For those of you who know CF Engine, the CF Engine server is very simple. It's basically a glorified FTP server. All it does is give out files and copy them on the network. There's no logic in the server. So, Rudder's architecture adds a few things on. First thing, we use a different port to CF Engine, so that if you are using CF Engine or you want to move on to CF Engine after starting to use Rudder, you can. They're both compatible, they can both be installed at the same time. Obviously, on the CF Engine server, we add our own code on top, the Rudder server, that generates the policy. And on the nodes, we bring up some extra data. So we bring up the inventory data, and we bring up reports. And we currently actually send those reports to syslog. So for those who were here this morning, the first talk, the presenter said that syslog is not only a tool, but it's also a network protocol. And so we just piggyback on the syslog protocol. All of our logs go into syslog, and they get sent up to the Rudder server using syslog across the network. A very simple, plain protocol. Last but not least, when we get the reports, we actually aggregate them into the Rudder server, so we just keep them all in our database. Okay. Rudder can be extended. There are several points of extension. I'm sure there's one that you've already gathered, is that you can write new techniques to manage other things. If you want to manage Nginx instead of Apache, we don't yet have a technique for that, but you can go ahead and write it. It's pretty easy. You do have to learn CF Engine 3. Obviously, there's no magical way of writing CF Engine code without learning it. So
Where's the easy bit there?
that's not so easy. The point is that you can do it once, and then all your colleagues can benefit from you having worked on it. We add to the CF Engine code XML descriptor. It's XML, but it's very simple XML. It's just kind of, this is a variable, it's a string, or it's an integer. And this is how you describe the web interface that I showed you earlier. You could choose the SSH parameters, how you describe it to Rudder, so that it can say, oh well, there's three options. It's root cannot log in, root can log in, or root can only log in using a key, and then the interface will display those options however you want them, and then generate them, generate the configs that go with them by taking the variables, adding them into the CF Engine files, and spitting out the CF Engine files. The other way to extend Rudder is to write plugins. The web app has a plugin system. There's a open source version of a sample plugin. It's available on GitHub. You can add pretty much anything you like into the web interface to do that. Yeah, you can add in anything you like. You could add in reporting history, for example, using the plugin. You could add in extra inventory data. You could pull in inventory data from some other inventory system that you already have if you wanted to do that. Writing plugins, there's nothing easy about that. I'll say that straight away. You have to learn Scala or at least Java to be able to do that and use the plugin API. It's for developers. We can't make that too easy. So, quick word about the roadmap before I finish. The 2.4 version is probably not going to be released in March because today is the last day of March and I'm not doing that tonight, so it'll probably be in April.
What, you're expecting beers?
Yeah, I'm expecting beers. We got a bit late on this because our lead developer just had a baby, so it's kind of stopped developing for the past 3 weeks. What does this bring? We have the possibility to import and export configurations. Like I say, every config change you make is now stored in a Git repository. You can also read in the configuration from the Git repository. So if you have Rudder installed in separate environments, if you have a development environment, testing environment, production environment, which are actually physically isolated, you could just get this Git repository and push or pull, depending on which way you want to go, to another environment and import the configs. Similarly, you can download them in a .zip file, some kind of archive, back them up, and if you have a disaster that also affects your Rudder server, you can reinstall Rudder server to add in your configurations to reinstall all your other servers. We can now delete nodes. That seems simple, but we had kind of forgotten that in the first version, so we can now actually remove nodes. And there's more and better techniques. Next version, 2.5, should be mid-2012, so roughly August. We're on a 4-month release cycle. So we're going to improve the directive configuration display. I said earlier that's the kind of least nice section. We're going to kind of sexify that, I think is the official term. Lots of Ajax, making it easier to see what's happening and contextual help available. More detailed reporting, like we said, currently it's kind of, it works, it doesn't work right now. More history, more ability to drill down. Oh, okay, so you're trying to create all the admin users that failed. Did that fail all of them, or was it just one guy you failed for? And role-based access control. community, pretty standard slide. The source code's on GitHub. We have an IRC channel. We're on Twitter. We're on Twitter, yep. Mailing lists about announcements, discussion, developments. Rudderproject.org is the project's website. There's a bug tracker there. There's a wiki. There's loads of documentation. If you do want to come along, give Rudder a try. We would really appreciate any comments you have, even if the comments are, "Oh, I installed it and I just really didn't understand where I should click." That's really useful information for us. We'd like to know that. Or if you want to contribute policy templates or plugins, I mean, that's fantastic too. Less likely, I guess.
Do you have somewhere in your mind? Do you think? Do you think you'll be also managing routers and switches?
Possibly. It's not in our roadmap currently, but it's possible, and I can tell you that the CF Engine agent that we use is kind of going that way.
Yeah.
CF Engine also already runs on Android phones, so we might be able to manage phones or anything else that runs Android. If CF Engine sprouts the ability to manage routers, I guess it's a possibility. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's a possibility.
Course.
So, any other questions? Yeah.
What kind of relationship do you have with CF Engine?
Well, as the Normation, the company, which is my company running most of the development on Rudder, 99% of the development on Rudder, we're CF Engine partners. So we have a partnership agreement. We actually work with CF Engine a lot. We do CF Engine training around the world for them. I shouldn't say this in an open source conference, but we also resell their proprietary products. We work with them very closely. We actually collaborate on development a lot. Some of the things that are shared between Rudder and CF Engine, there are some APIs, there are some tools, kind of management tools. We actually work on those together so that we don't re-implement what's happening. Yeah.
Following up on that, CF Engine Nova,
Yeah.
I don't know it very well, but it kind of reminds me of what you're doing with the Rudder project.
Yeah.
So aren't you kind of competing there, or?
No. It's confusing and it's quite hard to explain, but CF Engine Nova is, it includes a web interface, but the aim of the web interface is not to make configuration management easy, it's to make it easier to scale your CF Engine. So instead of running a couple of hundred nodes, you can check these using some Nagios checks, possibly email even, but if you're running 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 hosts, you need to have a web interface that summarizes that information for you. That's what CF Engine Nova is about. Yeah. Any more questions?
Are there any other backends other than Postgres that you are able to connect to?
No, not currently. We haven't tried, we haven't tested. None of the SQL queries are very complicated there, so it's highly likely that you could add MySQL or MariaDB support pretty easily. We do also use an OpenLDAP directory as a database, so all the inventory information and the configuration information is stored in LDAP, because it's typical LDAP information. It's 99% read, 1% write, and it works great for now. Any more questions? No? Well, thank you very much for